Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you are a first-time viewer, welcome. If you are a return viewer, welcome again. Thank you for coming back and sharing my love of knives. I am a knife collector and a new knife maker. And I recently did a poll, and if you haven't checked that out, check that out. And overwhelmingly, 80% of you said that you would like to see more of my processes and how I make knives. So the two options were, what would you like to see on the channel? So I'm trying to grow the channel, trying to get things out there for everyone. I'm not even going to try to pretend that I understand algorithms and everything else. I'm just trying to grow the channel. And according to YouTube, I have about 300 and some odd subscribers, which is fantastic, but I'm not really seeing that in the views. So I asked everyone, what would you like to see? More of the production stuff? I could pull out some more of my production stuff, or more of the making part of it. And the whole 4 votes that I got was mostly for making. So right now I'm in the process of doing a Kydex sheath for this knife, which is I'm finishing up. This is my model called the Gargoyle. It's a skeletonized knife, so the handle is not going to change from that. I actually have a buyer for it, so he wants that nice texture of the raw steel. And then I smoothed out everything. All of the corners and everything are nicely smoothed out. I'd show you the blade, but I have it all taped up, which I'm going to explain here in a minute. So let's talk about sheaths. So I like to make Kydex. Leather's not something I'm really interested in working with, although I would love to, but that would be a whole new set of skills and tools and everything else. So I choose Kydex. So Kydex is basically just kind of a plastic. I like to use 0.06 Kydex. Oh, before I get started with this, I just want everybody to understand, I am not an expert at any of this. I'm still learning. I've only been doing this for about a year, but I kind of want to share what I'm doing and everything I've learned to you guys. Maybe you're a new maker, or maybe you're thinking about getting into it, but you're maybe a little scared or hesitant about getting started because you don't understand what you're trying to do. But I'm trying to make it a little easier. Anybody can do this. If I can do it, believe me, you can do it with just a little bit of thriftiness, a little bit of know-how. Anybody can pick it up. And just like you, I learned by watching videos and talking to some other makers, and I kind of put together my own ways of doing things. You're going to hear all kinds of different techniques and everything, so you got to kind of take that all in and then do it yourself. But the only way you learn is to actually get out and do it. So please, if any of you are looking to start it, you got to start, and you got to start somewhere. Be a maker. I love people who create things with their hands. I completely respect any of that. So with all that being said, let's get back to what I'm doing. So I use Kydex. This is the raw side of Kydex. This is the side that's going to be on the outside, and then you have more of a shiny, smooth side, and this ends up being on the inside of the knife. I know it doesn't make sense to me at first, but it will once I start heating this up. So this comes in large sheets, small sheets, all kind of different sizes, but I've already cut this out, and I just use a razor blade to do it. It's very easy to cut. And then I kind of shaped it to where I know the knife is going to be and what we're going to do. So this is going to be a one-piece construction. So basically I'm going to heat this up, and the knife is going to get placed here, and then this is going to fold over. So it's going to end up here. Let me show you. Let's see. I got a bunch of them hanging over here. Actually, here, I'll show you this one because it's already on the knife. So it's going to end up looking like this, where it's rolled over on the top. And it's all connected down here at the bottom with the rivets. So this is a Cardinal. It's a model that I have. It's actually available on my Etsy page. So if you're interested, check out my link in the bio. You go to the Etsy page. This is only 120 bucks, 440C steel, black burlap micarta handle, a nice secure sheath. It's a fantastic package. And that's kind of what I make. If you're new to the channel, I make everyday carry size fixed blades. Something you can carry with you every day. It's not going to get in the way, but it's always going to be there for any cutting needs that you have. So I got to this point. I have the Kydex cut. I have the blade taped. So I have 2 layers of tape on the blade. I do this for a couple of reasons. Number one, to protect the blade. The last thing you want when you have the knife in the sheath is for that Kydex to rub up against your blade. You've spent all this time making that nice and shiny, getting it nice and smooth, and the last thing you want is every time you put it in and out of the Kydex that it scratches your finish that you put on your blade. So when you're thermoforming this, because basically we're going to use heat to form this for the knife. You don't want the Kydex so tight up against the edge that every time you're pulling it out, it's going to rub and it's going to put a scratch on your blade. So you want to give it that little extra space in there for that. So I usually use 2 layers of tape. Some people use 3. You can whatever you want. I like to use 2. And the tape protects the blade, gives you that space. That's really what the tape is for. It helps you form it too. Notice I don't have any creases in the tape. I taped it long ways. Up here won't matter too much, but as long as you don't have that, because actually I've seen, especially in the thinner Kydex, you can actually see it in the Kydex that if you have a tape line, it'll actually pull that up. So before I get started, I need to understand where on this knife is going to be what holds that sheath onto the blade. And what I mean by that is you could do it a couple ways. So where you get that click from is where this Kydex is connecting to that sheath. And on this knife, it's right at the tang. So the Kydex is really tight right in this area of the blade, and that's what holds the Kydex on. Some people use the handle scale or the handle scales to do it as well. I can use actually a little bit of both on this knife, but when you put it in, you want that nice little snap. It's not going to fall out on you. And what I do is I try to use the tang. I don't know if you guys will really be able to see that where we are in the light, but it's really tight in here, and that's what is giving me my compression on the knife. So this one might be a little strange because it doesn't have handle scales on it, and it's not going to. So right there at the back of this tang, right in here is where I'm going to want all of that compression so that gets locked into place. I've seen some people use maybe this hole that you could do that, and I'm going to bring that Kydex up. As you can see, I'm probably going to put the knife somewhere around in there and then fold that over. So I'm going to get a good compression in here and good in here, so it has a good retention in there. But the hole is interesting because then if you make that too deep within the hole, which means it forms too deeply in that hole, it's going to rub on the blade on the way out. So I don't want that because it could scratch up my finish that I put on the blade. So I'm not too worried about here, but right in here is where my concern is going to be for this particular knife. But so you have to think about those things before you get started and cutting out where you want everything is. You got to kind of have a vision. So that's my vision. All right. So what else are you going to need? You're going to need, the most important thing is your press. Now you can buy a press, a couple $100, and it's all metal, but you have to have this foam. You can buy this on any, you can buy it on Amazon or anywhere else. It's the thermoforming foam, nice and thick. That's what you want. And I built this press myself, fairly easy. You just want to make sure that you have that compression, and when you close that, it gets really tight. I'm going to use clamps to clamp it all down. You could see where I've done it over and over again with all the sheaths that I've done. So this is probably the most important thing, is because you want a nice compression. And if you look closely, you can see all the compressions of other knives that I've done. And it just leaves that, and these after a while will wear out, or I'll flip them over to the other side, or I'll just have to buy a new set of foam sheets, which these aren't terribly expensive, so I'm not too worried about it, but they've lasted me a little over a year, so I'm not worried about too much. So you have that, and then you need a way of heating. So today I'm going to use a heat gun, which I don't completely recommend. Using a toaster oven or something like that is probably what most people would use. These can get a little bit too hot, and you really have to be able to control the heat on how it's displaced, because this Kydex can overheat on you, and then it's worthless. You got to throw it away in the garbage if it overheats. But I've gotten pretty good at this method, so I'm going to do it on this. And if you're going to use this, you should probably have something to heat it on. I have this fire brick from another oh my god, I have this fire brick that I have from another what's it called? Anyway, I had that laying around, so I'm going to use that so I can heat everything on that, and make it nice and hot without worried about burning my plastic table. Well, this won't be plastic for long. I'm going to build actual tables, but for right now, this is working out really well for me. So I'm going to do that. And as soon as this gets hot enough to where it's pliable, I'm going to set it all in here, shut this, get the clamps on there, and then it has to just do its job. And then we'll come back, and that's when the fun begins, when you start shaping it and doing everything else. So I'll explain that in a little bit. So let's do this. Got the glove up. Ooh, sorry guys. And there you go, guys. There you go. So I had to move pretty quick. You have to move pretty quick with that step. You don't want that Kydex to cool off. It does cool off fairly quickly. So you don't want it to cool off. And I just make this as tight as I possibly can, probably over tightening it, but I want it nice and tight. It's very, very important that I get a nice tight fit on my Kydex. I want the user to not have to worry about any issues with the sheath. Even with some leather sheets, unless it's really strapped in, sometimes they're not very tight. They don't hold very well. So with my Kydex sheaths, like I showed you guys, I mean, I don't want that to ever have to come out unless you want it to come out. So it's very easy for me to pull this out with my finger, but it's not, I don't want it to ever come out when you're carrying it. So that's super important to me. So with every sheath that I make, be that every knife that I sell, I know I want that sheath to be nice and tight and it's not going to fall out on you. All right, so this has to sit in here. I usually let it sit there for 20-30 minutes. Then I'll pull it out and I'll update you on that process. All right, see you guys in a bit. All right, guys, we're back. Life sometimes happens, so now we are several hours after when I set this up. But, you know, life happens sometimes and things get put in front of the projects that you're working on. Let me get something real quick. So it's been time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up. We're going to see what it looks like, and then we will start the next step of the process, which is more of the fun part of the process. So boom, boom. It was very tight, which is good. All right, let's see. So far, so good on my opinion. We're a little tight in here. Okay, so as you can see, it is now thoroughly, you get the shape of the blade within the Kydex. Both sides, looks like it thermoformed very well. Again, like I said, this area of the blade is where all of the retention is going to be. And I even got a little bit of retention where that hole was. Remember the hole? I'm going to end up cutting a lot of this out and then rolling this up, making a little thumb push on it. And then we're going to roughly shape out what we're going to make the sheath look like. Drill some holes, put the rivets in, and we'll be doing that. So that is going to be the next step. But as you can see, so far, I like the way that it's turned out. So anyway, someone said that the Kydex kind of looks like a leather. I don't know if that's true. It looks like Kydex to me, but that's because I know what it is. Like I said, I don't like how this is a little tight in here because I have to leave enough space to actually get a rivet drilled into that. But I think there's just enough space here to get a couple rivets in so that I can attach the loops or whatever kind of belt mount that the customer wants, or you as a buyer want to switch out what I provide. But nice and tight. So right now, the next step is I remove the blade out and we start drawing out what we want to do and making the holes and shaping this sheath into what we're going to do. So, all right, so far, so good. We're going to get started on the next steps. All right, guys, so at this point in time, you have your sheath roughly pressed. So now's the fun part where you get to kind of design the shape that you want. You can see what I've done. I have a marking pencil and I kind of marked off where I wanted it to roughly, so I can make my initial cut, and then with the grinder and sandpaper, etc., I can start working this back. You just don't want where your retention point is going to be too loose, because you can only remove so much material once you go back. Once you go too far, you can never go back, so you always have to be careful. And we have already discussed that this area is where the retention is going to be. So I don't want to get too close to that until I get over to the grinder, and I'll start sanding slowly hitting that back and back until you want the knife to go in smooth, but not to the point where it's too hard. Plus, you want that retention to hold the knife in. So, but the first step with that is you got to drill the holes for where you want your rivets to be. I install my rivets first, and then I go back and cut and grind back what I need to. So at this point, you have full creativity on what you want this sheath to look like. So I roughly did mine. And there really are no rules. The only rule that I have is I use 1/4 inch round rivets, and I always want to make sure I get close to the retention point.
and leave myself enough back here to do a little finger notch for your thumb, which I'll show you guys how to do that. But other than that, you can use 15 rivets, you can use whatever you want to use. You can put one up here, you can put one down here. So you could be pretty creative. And with Kydex, there's hundreds of different colors and now patterns, etc. I use 1/4-inch holes, I said that, and you want to use these drill bits that look like that. Everybody recommends that, so you want to use that. I don't know if you guys can see, but there you go. So you want to see one of those. So I mean, me drilling holes isn't really amazing, but I'm going to drill these holes out, and then I'm going to take up to my little bandsaw, roughly shape out the sheath, and then to the grinder to smooth it all out a little bit, and then I hand sand the rest. This Kydex goes pretty quick. It's pretty unforgiving if you go too far, so you got to be careful with it. All right. I'm probably going to fast forward at this point, but I'm just going to start. Alright guys, I have it rough shaped, very rough. What I want to do now is, you saw me take this little file and I kind of rubbed it in the holes. That's to get, all the burrs and stuff out from there. You want that nice and tight. It still has some space in there, so I'm sure with the grinding there's some burrs and stuff in there that I'm going to take out with the file. I'm going to do that. Maybe shape this up a little bit with my Dremel tool, and then I'm going to put the rivets in. I probably should have done that before I cut it and did everything, but I didn't. It doesn't matter, there's no rules. So I'm gonna go do that. I'm gonna clean this up and then we'll go put the rivets in. I broke my camera stand, so I don't know what I'm gonna do, how I'm gonna do that, but I'll prop it up somehow. All right, guys, this is becoming a very fun video to shoot. So I have my little eye rivets, or my eyelets. These come in many different sizes, shapes, colors, but I use the nice black on black, just classic. I like the 1/4-inch because that holds my that holds most of the clips and the straps that I use for the sheaths. So I'll show you the strap here in a bit, but I try to use the show side, which is this side of the rivet, out however it's going to be carried. I'm right-handed, so usually that right side of the sheath while I'm looking at it is going to be the outside. So I'm going to put them all in one by one. You just push them in. That 1/4-inch hole on the drill is just big enough to get them in. Sometimes the press, you can use the press to help push them in, but they usually go in pretty well without too much effort. Of course, I'm struggling.
But I have this press. This was just something that I did. You don't have to have the press. There's other types of tools and another way to do it where you just have a hammer and you can hammer them in. But this press makes life so much easier. You just push it down and boom. Nice and tight, and now I have my rivet in place. So I'm going to continue doing that for the rest of these, and hopefully that'll work out well. There we go. Push that in. A little bit of pressure, and it's in. So I'm just going to continue doing that for 2 more. I'm only going to do 4 on this one. I don't feel the need to put any more than 4. I don't want to put one up here. I could put a small one up there. 1/4 inch would fit up there too, but yeah, it's not something. It's like I said, there's no rules when it comes to that. It's whatever you want to do. The only rule is what kind of clip do you plan on using, and I use these soft pull the dot straps, and so literally it will go right there, or I can put it right here. I'm gonna probably set it up right here, and the user, whoever's buying this knife, they can switch it. It's just 1 screw, and they can move it wherever they want. That's completely up to them. That's the great thing about it. So I'm gonna set this in, pull it down, get a nice press on it, and one more time. And there you have it. So now all the rivets are in place. The seat's not going anywhere. It's pretty much in place. And the only thing left to do at this point is a little bit of hand sanding. I want to smooth that out a little bit. I want to smooth this area a little bit, and then we'll fit it to the knife. Let's just see where we are now. So we have the knife. I notice I still have the tape on the knife, because this is still rough and I want to protect that blade. It's still a little tight, and as you can see, it's not going to fit in there until I remove some more material. That's way too hard to get in, so I'm going to have to remove a little bit more material in this area until that is ready to go. So this is just, you keep going back to it. I'm going to take my Dremel drum sander and smooth this area out, remove some material, try to go probably like a 300 grit on it, and so I don't go too aggressive, and we'll see how that goes. All right, I'm gonna go do that off camera and come back and show you guys what it looks like. This is becoming a little bit much. I have the camera strapped down, or my phone, because I'm doing this all on my phone, strapped down, so we'll see. I'll bring it back and show you guys what it looks like. All right. All right, guys, so I smoothed that out a little bit. And with the little test fit that I did, I noticed that right in here, where it pinched as it went into the hole of the handle, it's a little tight as I put it in. I don't know, I'll have to rest you guys here and let you see. So as the blade goes in, there's a lot of tension in that area, and it's making it a little bit difficult, but that, where I wanted it to be, the retention is pretty darn good. Definitely not going to fall out. Keep in mind I still have the tape on the blade, so it's going to be a little tight. What I'm going to do is I'm going to heat this area up nice and low, and I'm going to put a little thumb. Basically what I want to do is lift that part up to make it a little bit of a thumb press, so when you're taking the knife out, you grab the handle and your thumb hits here to push the blade out. And right now it's nice and tight, but keep in mind I still have the tape on it. And what I'm hoping is when I do that, it's going to loosen up this section right here. It should, in theory, to do that. So I'm going to do that real quick, and we'll see how that goes. All right. Let's get to this. I'm going to set you guys like right there, see how that works while I do this. All right. So I'm going to put the heat gun on low. And then I'm just going to slowly heat this. I have a tool. You don't want to overheat it, but just enough to where it becomes pliable again. So I have this little tool that I like to get it started with, and then I'll go in with my actual finger in the glove to really start to bend that back. But you can see it's starting to loosen up and bend. That's what I want. I really want to get that nice groove. Let's put your thumb in it so you can already see it's starting to lift. Get my thumb in there. See how it's doing that? And it's going to loosen up that section there. I need to zoom out a little bit. There you go. What do you think of that? It's going to be a nice thumb. See, that's all that it is. Real quick, real easy. You let that cool off. It released some of the tension, I believe, I'm hoping, in there. But it gives me a nice thumb groove to press and hold on that. So now I have a nice thumb push to really get in there and push that blade out. So at this point, it's fingers crossed, and we're going to try to take the tape off and try this without the tape. So I got a nice sheen on this blade. Looks really good. So you can see, nice reflective. Got it to about 600 grit. No, I think I went to 800 on that blade. So it looks really good. So I'm going to slide that in. I'm starting to feel a little tension up there, but it's nice and smooth. So this is the good thing about Kydex. You see how that's kind of loose? There's a lot of play in there. So right in here, I need to tighten that up a little bit. So this is just tuning it in. So literally I'm going to do the same thing I did with my thumb stud or my thumb. I'm going to do that here. It's definitely not falling out loose, but it's still a lot of play, and I don't like that. So I'm going to tighten this up a little bit in here. And if even I'm just putting my little bit of pressure with my thumb, it stops it from moving around. So literally I just have to heat it up just a little bit, press this in a little bit, and then cool it off, and it should be perfect. All right, let's do that again. Get the heat going. Heat it up just a little bit. There we go. Pressing it in, letting it cool. As I press it in nice and tight. Still a little bit of play. It's not great on your fingers, but whatever gets the job done. That's why I'm wearing the gloves. Still a little play. You know, it's just one of those things. You just got to keep trying at it, keep trying to make it work until you get the outcome that you want. But like I said, it's super, super important to me that that's the last thing that the person who wants this knife has to worry about is the play. See, now we got so much better. That is so much better. Hardly any play in that whatsoever now. Just a little bit, but that's not terrible. So let's see. All right, should pop off one hand. I can pop it off one hand. Nice click. No, I don't like that. All right, guys, I'm going to continue playing with it, and I'll update you. All right, guys, there you have it. Nice, secure Kydex sheath. Sorry, I needed two hands, and this setup wasn't allowing me to do it. So I got it nice and tight in there. There's just a very slight bit of play in there, but that's not too terrible. I missed with the thumb push a little bit, so literally now I can shoot that sheath off. I can't even reach it. I shot it so far. So it has a nice, nice tight hold on it, and it pops off very nicely. So there you go, a gargoyle with its sheath that I flung across the room. There you go, nice Kydex sheath. With that, I'll end up putting the nice strap on it, and it'll be done. Then the only thing left on this knife really is to sharpen it. But came out pretty cool, and now it has a nice sheath to go along with it. I hope that kind of helped you guys out if you're wondering how to do something. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but hopefully you learned something and I didn't screw up too much. I wish you could have seen behind the scenes, because it's been an absolute craziness with the camera breaking, and it's been a mess. So I'm hoping I can put all these videos together and edit it. I'm not really great at editing, to be honest with you, but I'm going to do my best. But if you enjoyed this, please subscribe, give me a thumbs up or a like, leave a comment, ask any questions you have or not. That choice is yours.